The day began with laughter, horns, and the sweet scent of roasted corn drifting through the streets of Enugu. Amaka, a lively 16-year-old girl with curious eyes, packed her small pink travel bag as her mother called from the kitchen. "Don't forget your slippers, oh. Village road is not like city road." Amaka rolled her eyes and giggled. "Mommy, I'm just going for 1 week, not a lifetime." Her two best friends, Tond and Ngozi, arrived soon after, dragging dusty suitcases and sharing roasted groundnuts. They were all city children, born among traffic, billboards, and loud generators, but this trip to Umoka village, Amaka's ancestral home, felt like an adventure waiting to happen. Their parents had agreed the children needed a taste of real life: no Wi-Fi, no fast food, no noise except the chirping of crickets and the whisper of trees. The bus that would take them to the village was old and painted in fading green, with "God's time is the best motors" written boldly on the side. Inside, chickens squawked from a basket under the seat, and a woman with a baby on her back hummed softly. Tom complained, "This bus is older than my grandfather's wristwatch." Everyone laughed. The driver shouted, "If you know like you fit go Morka." They laughed harder, the mood light but expectant. The road wound through dusty towns, mango trees arching overhead like guardians of a forgotten world. Amaka watched as tall buildings faded into farmlands, then into thick green forest. Her mother's words echoed faintly in her heart, "There are places your phone cannot find you, my daughter." Some behind smoke-cloud arrival in Omorka. After 6 long hours, the bus rattled into the small village. Chickens scattered across the road as children waved at the newcomers. Smoke rose gently from clay stoves. The air smelled of palm oil and fresh earth. Waiting by a wooden gate was Mama Neka, Amoka's grandmother, thin, wrinkled, but with eyes as sharp as a hawk's. Her wrapper was tied tightly around her waist, her grey hair glistened in the sunlight. "Welcome, my children," she said warmly. "City people, you will see the real world today." They greeted her, kneeling slightly out of respect. Inside her compound, the ground was swept clean, red earth shining like burnt clay. A rooster strutted proudly near the yam barn. That night, they sat around the smoky kitchen fire as Mama Neka told stories of spirits that guarded the forest, hunters who never returned, and a gorilla said to roam the deep woods at night. Ngozi shivered. "Is that true, Grandma?" "My child," Mama Neka said, staring into the fire, "some stories are not lies, they are warnings." The wind outside whistled softly through the banana trees. Ton laughed nervously and changed the topic, but Amaka kept silent, eyes fixed on the firelight. Somewhere deep inside her, curiosity began to grow, a quiet whisper saying, "You must see that forest for yourself." Amaka woke up to the sound of roosters and the smell of firewood smoke. The sun had just started to rise over the hills of Omorka, painting the clay houses gold. She rubbed her eyes and smiled. It was a first full day in the village. Town was already outside, chasing a goat with a stick, while Ngozi sat quietly on a wooden bench, fanning herself. "This place is too quiet," she murmured. Amaka laughed. "That's the point. No traffic, no noise, no wala." After breakfast, Mama Neka sent them to fetch water from the stream. The path was long and narrow, lined with tall grass and buzzing insects. Birds called from high trees, and the air was thick with the scent of wildflowers. As they walked, they saw an old man carrying firewood. He stopped and stared at them. "Children," he said in a rough voice, "don't go too far. The forest beyond the stream is not for play." Tom grinned. "We are not afraid of any forest, sir." The man shook his head slowly. "It's not about fear. It's about respect. That forest doesn't like strangers." Then he turned and disappeared into the bush. They fetched the water and began to walk back, but Amaka kept glancing at the trail that led deeper into the forest. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful, like it was calling her name. Later that evening, as they sat under the moonlight eating roasted corn, Amaka whispered, "What if we just go a little inside tomorrow, just to see what's there?" Ngozi frowned. "Didn't you hear the man? Even your grandma said that forest is dangerous." Tom laughed. "Dangerous how? Maybe monkeys would throw bananas at us." Amaka giggled, but something about the idea thrilled her. She couldn't explain it, she just felt drawn to the unknown. That night, as the wind rustled through the trees and the forest hummed quietly in the distance, Amaka couldn't sleep. In her mind, she kept seeing the narrow path behind the stream, dark, silent, waiting. She didn't know that by following it, her life and her friends' lives would never be the same again. The morning was bright, calm, and full of that lazy village peace that makes time feel slow. Amaka turned, and Ngozi had promised Mama Neka they'd only go to the stream again, but deep inside, they already knew they wouldn't stop there. After filling their calabashes, Amaka pointed toward the narrow trail that curved deeper into the trees. "Let's just go a little further," she said, smiling. "Maybe we'll find something interesting." Ngozi hesitated. "Amaka, this isn't a good idea." "Relax," Tom said. "We'll only go a few minutes and turn back." So they went. The forest swallowed them slowly. The trees grew taller and thicker, their branches crossing above like a roof. Shafts of sunlight slipped through the leaves, lighting tiny patches of earth. The air smelled of wet soil and mystery. They laughed, picking wild fruits and recording short clips on Tom's phone. Birds fluttered across the path, and monkeys chattered somewhere far away. Everything felt alive until it didn't. When they finally stopped laughing, silence pressed around them. The wind had died. The forest felt too still. Ngozi whispered, "Where's the stream? I can't hear it anymore." They turned around, but the path behind them looked strange. Too many trees, no footprints, no sound of water. Tom tried to joke, maybe the forest changed clothes. But even his voice shook. They began to walk back, or what they thought was back. Every town looked the same. The air felt thicker. The light dimmed. Soon it felt like evening, though the sun should have still been high. Amaka's phone showed no network. Tom's battery had died. Ngozi started crying softly. "We'll find our way," Amaka said, trying to sound brave. But her heart pounded hard. She started to notice things she hadn't before, the distant creak of branches, a faint humming like someone singing far away. Then came a sound, quick, sharp, human. A twig snapped. Tom froze. "Did you hear that?" They looked around. Nothing. Then another sound, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. "Run!" Amaka shouted. They dropped the water and ran through the trees, branches scratching their arms. The footsteps followed. Then suddenly, a voice.
"Stop!"
"Don't run!" They turned and saw two men step out from the shadows. One held a machete, the other a sack. The man with the machete smiled, revealing brown teeth. "Welcome," he said. "You've gone too far from home." Before they could scream, the men moved closer. Tom tried to fight, but one blow to the head sent him to the ground. Amaka's world went dark. The forest, once beautiful, now became a trap, silent, deep, and merciless. Amaka opened her eyes to darkness. The air was heavy with the smell of damp wood and smoke. Her wrist ached, tied tightly with rope. Beside her, Tom groaned softly, blood dried on his forehead. Ngozi was awake too, trembling in silence, her eyes wide with fear. They were in a small mud hut, lit only by a faint lantern that swung gently from the ceiling. Shadows moved on the walls. Outside, voices murmured, deep, rough, and careless. "Them say the families from the city get money," one voice said. "If we call them, go pay." Amaka's heart pounded. "Kidnappers." Real ones. Tom tried to whisper, "We need to escape." But his voice cracked. Ngozi began to sob quietly. Amaka pressed her hand against her friend's mouth, shaking her head. "Don't make a sound," she whispered. One of the men entered, tall, with a scar running down his face. He looked at them for a long time, chewing a stick. "If una behave well, una go home," he said coldly. "But if una shout," he sliced the air with his machete. The meaning was clear. He left again, locking the wooden door with a rusty padlock. The hours crawled by. Hunger bit deep. Mosquitoes hummed in the dark. Amaka tried to think, what would her mother be doing now? Would anyone know where they were? Night came again. The kidnappers sat outside, drinking and laughing. Their laughter sounded like thunder, cruel, echoing through the forest. Then, somewhere far away, a sound broke through, a long, strange howl. It wasn't human. The men went silent. One of them cursed under his breath. "That thing don't start again," he muttered. "What thing?" another asked. "The big one that walks at night. I tell you, say this forest no pure." They argued quietly, fear creeping into their voices. Inside the hut, Amaka listened. Her eyes met Tom's. "Maybe someone is coming," she whispered. But Ngozi shook her head. That didn't sound like a person. The sound came again, deeper this time, like the growl of something ancient. The ground itself seemed to tremble. The kidnappers shouted, running toward their campfire. Amaka strained against her ropes, her heart racing. Whatever was out there was coming closer, and the forest, once silent, had started to breathe again. Back in the village, evening fell heavy with worry. The children had been gone since morning. Their calabashes were found abandoned by the stream, water spilled into the mud. Mama Neka's voice trembled as she spoke to the villagers. "My granddaughter and her friends have not come back. I feel something is wrong." The villagers murmured in fear. Some said maybe they went to play by the river, others whispered about the forbidden forest. Then the old hunter, Okri, stepped forward. His face was darkened by years of sun and smoke, his eyes sharp and quiet. He carried a long Dane gun and wore a brown wrapper tied across his chest. "I warned people before," he said calmly. "That forest eats those who don't respect it. But I will go." Without waiting for permission, he tied his hunting bag, slung his gun across his back, and set off before dawn. The forest swallowed him as soon as he entered. He moved silently, listening to the whispers of wind and the language of broken branches. He noticed footprints, 3 small ones and 2 large, heavier ones that didn't belong. He crashed, touched the earth, and sniffed. "Children and men," he muttered. "The men who walk without conscience." He followed the trail deeper. Birds flew away as he passed. He found a torn piece of Ngozi's dress caught on a thorn bush. Then he saw blood, a faint drop on a leaf. He touched it gently, his face tightening. "The forest is restless," he whispered. As night crept in, he built a small fire under a large tree and sat silently, watching the flames dance. Then he heard it, that same distant growl. Deep, heavy, echoing through the trees. Every animal in the forest went quiet. Even the crickets stopped. The old hunter stood slowly, cocked his gun, and whispered a prayer under his breath. "If it's man, I will fight. If it's spirit, let me return in peace." He began walking toward the sound, guided by the echo and his instinct. His lamp swung lightly in the darkness. Then he saw it, a massive footprint in the soft soil, twice the size of his own. Not human. Okari knelt, touched it, and frowned. "Not animal either," he said softly. "Something older." Somewhere ahead, faint voices drifted through the air, human voices. Children's cries. He gripped his gun tighter and began to move faster. He didn't know that the creature he'd been tracking, the same one that frightened the kidnappers, was watching him too, glowing eyes following from the shadows. And deep inside the forest, fate was bringing the hunter, the children, the kidnappers, and the gorilla together. The forest was darker than night itself. The kidnappers sat close to their fire, whispering nervously. One of them kept glancing into the shadows, clutching his machete tight. "That sound again," the scar-faced man muttered. "It's followed us since yesterday." His partner spat into the dirt. "It's just an animal." But before the words left his mouth, the trees shook. A branch snapped, loud, close. Then came a deep rumble that vibrated through the ground. The fire flickered wildly. Something was moving between the trees, huge, heavy, and breathing loud. Amaka, tied inside the hut, felt her heart freeze. The sound drew nearer until even the kidnapper stood still, too afraid to move. From the darkness, it appeared. A massive gorilla, tall as a man and broad as two. Its black fur glistened under the moonlight. Its eyes glowed amber, filled not with rage but with strange sadness. The scar-faced kidnapper shouted, "Shoot it! Shoot!" But his partner trembled too much to lift the gun. The gorilla roared, a sound that tore through the night like thunder. Birds burst from the trees, and the kidnapper stumbled back in terror. One dropped his weapon and ran blindly into the forest. The other fired once, the gunshot echoing through the woods, but the gorilla barely flinched. It charged forward, grabbed the man's arm, and flung him aside like a rag. Then everything went silent again. Amaka could hear only her own heartbeat. Through a crack in the hut wall, she saw the giant creature turn its head toward her. For a moment, their eyes met. She expected it to attack. Instead, it stepped closer and sniffed the air, as if searching for something. Then it reached out, gripped the wooden door, and with one pull, tore it open. Amaka gasped. The ropes around her wrist snapped like thread. Ngozi screamed and hid her face, but the gorilla didn't harm them. It stood there, breathing heavy, watching them with eyes that almost looked human. Then, from somewhere behind, came another sound, footsteps. A man's voice called out, "Children. Where are you?" It was the hunter, Okori. The gorilla turned its head sharply toward the voice, gave one last deep growl, and slipped back into the forest shadows, silent, powerful, gone. Moments later, Okori burst into the clearing, gun raised. He froze when he saw the broken door, the wounded kidnapper, and the terrified children. "Who did this?" he asked. Amaka pointed to the forest, still shaking. "It wasn't a man," she whispered. "It was the gorilla." Okori's face changed. He lowered his gun slowly and muttered under his breath, "So the spirit of the forest still walks." He untied the children completely, gave them water, and began leading them away, but all around, strange cries echoed through the trees, as if the forest itself was awake. The danger wasn't over yet. One kidnapper had escaped and the gorilla wasn't finished.
The night was heavy with mist as Okori led the children through the forest. Every step crunched softly over dry leaves. The lantern he carried threw a trembling light across their faces, pale, scared, silent. "Keep close," he whispered. "Don't look back." But fear had already rooted itself deep in them. Ngozi's breathing came fast. Ton limped slightly, still dizzy from the blow on his head. Amaka gripped the hunter's wrapper tightly, glancing behind every few seconds. Somewhere in the distance, they heard movement, branches breaking, footsteps running. The escaped kidnapper was following them. Okori stopped. "Stay here." He crouched low, raised his gun, and listened. The forest spoke softly in creaks and whispers. Then he saw him, the same man who'd run earlier, holding a knife, eyes wild with rage. "You think you can take them from me, old man?" the kidnapper hissed. Okori said nothing. He waited. The kidnapper lunged. A flash of steel, a sharp shout, then a gunshot exploded through the forest. Birds flew up in panic. The man fell, clutching his arm, screaming. Before Okari could fire again, a new sound filled the air, that deep growl again. The ground trembled. The gorilla returned, bursting through the trees like a shadow come alive. The wounded kidnapper froze where he lay. His knife slipped from his hand. The gorilla towered over him, eyes blazing with fury. It let out a thunderous roar that shook even the hunter's heart. The kidnapper screamed and crawled backward, but there was nowhere to run. In one powerful motion, the gorilla grabbed him by the collar and hurled him into the thick bush. The forest swallowed his scream. Then silence, only the sound of the wind through the leaves. Amaka and her friends clung to each other. Okari lowered his gun slowly. The gorilla turned to face them again. Its breathing was deep, its chest rising and falling like the earth itself. Okari took a step forward, bowing his head slightly. "Guardian of the forest," he said softly, "we mean no harm. These are children, lost and afraid." For a moment, the gorilla stood still, staring. Then, almost gently, it beat its chest twice, thump, thump, and turned away. It walked back into the darkness, each step fading like a drumbeat in the distance. When it was gone, the forest seemed to exhale, the night softer, calmer, almost peaceful. The children began to cry, not from fear anymore, but from relief. Okari looked at the path ahead. "Let's go home," he said quietly. They began their long walk back toward the village, guided by the dim light of dawn breaking through the trees. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, dawn had broken. The sky glowed softly pink, and the first rooster crowed from the distant village. Amaka could see smoke rising from cooking fires. Home was near. When they stepped out from the trees, villagers gasped. Mama Neka ran barefoot toward them, tears streaming down her face. She held Amaka so tightly that the girl could barely breathe. "My child, I thought the forest swallowed you," she cried. Ngozi's mother knelt beside her daughter, weeping and thanking God. Tom's father patted Okari's shoulder, voice trembling. "You are a brave man. The ancestors will bless you." But Okari only looked toward the forest, quiet. "Thank them," he said softly. "Something greater than me walked tonight." Later that evening, when Com returned, the village gathered around the fire to hear what had happened. Amaka told the story, how they got lost, how the kidnappers caught them, and how the gorilla appeared and saved their lives. The elders murmured among themselves. One old woman, her eyes cloudy with age, spoke in a low voice. "That gorilla is no ordinary beast. Long ago, the first hunter of this village, Amaka's great-grandfather, was said to guard the forest even after death. The spirit took the form of the great ape. It protects those with his blood." Everyone turned to look at Amaka. She felt a chill down her spine. Her grandmother placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "That's why it didn't harm you." Okari nodded slowly. "The forest remembers kindness and punishes greed." The children were spared because their hearts were pure. The village performed a small thanksgiving. A pot of palm wine was poured on the earth in honor of the guardian spirit. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the night. When the drum started, Amaka sat quietly apart, watching the dark line of trees beyond the fields. For a moment, she thought she saw two glowing eyes watching from between the leaves. But instead of fear, she felt peace. She whispered, "Thank you." The eyes blinked once, and were gone. The wind passed softly through the trees, as if the forest itself was breathing again. From that day on, no child in Umuaka ever wandered too far. And when the people told stories of courage, mystery, and mercy, they began with the same words. Once, a girl entered the forest, and came back with a tale that would never die.